Yo, 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 Salaam nerds. This your boy Neebs, aka Watch with Neebs, and I'm here with my co-host Jazz, aka DJ Snips.
DJ Snips.
Yay! You lack
This is
conviction.
it was so nice seeing him again. And so oh, I love this episode so much. Let's introduce our guest and get into it, man.
All right, man. Let's introduce our guest because this is a fun episode. Listen, the man you have known him for a while now. He's half brown and has the high ground. Ruzzy.
What's up, y'all? I do. I have the high ground, Anakin.
Oh
Uh,
man, I love that.
so
I love
grateful to be
that.
back on the best episode yet, and probably the best episode or best Star Wars anything since Rogue One. I can't wait to talk about it.
This was immaculate, and I haven't felt this way since Andor, so it's a good time to be a Star Wars fan. And I want to introduce Lando's long lost son, Adome.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Yes, I'm lost, but I shall be found by the end of this.
Yeah.
Just like our friend Ahsoka, indeed.
And those of you that are listening to this on podcast, that's what he has under his name. I'm not just being racist and just naming him the one black guy from original Star
Well,
Wars.
the only black guy in the whole 9 movies, man. I'm about to tell you.
I know. Oh man, this is gonna be a fun one to go into, man. I'm a big fan of this episode. Um, let's get into it. Oh, by the way, I got my Star Wars shirt on. It says "Stop Wars," and this shirt has been commented by Mark Hamill himself. Mark Hamill himself told me he loved my shirt, so this is my claim to fame.
Isn't that
Amen
the
to
shirt
that.
where what was her name? Natalie Portman was wearing, and someone was like, "Who's that hippie chick that's a fake Star Wars fan?" And
Yeah, yeah.
it
was
was
like
so.
It's so great.
It was an old school meme. Yeah, you're right.
It's like, bruh, no, she was literally in Star Wars.
Yeah, Jazz, I think you're getting a little bit of static, so make sure your mic wire is not touching something because I hear a little blip, 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 blip,
Better.
blip. Yeah, much better. All right, listen, let's get into this episode because this is a good one. Um, do we want to spend like a minute just like talking about the nostalgia because man,
Hell
did
yeah,
that
let's do it.
feel
Soak in
great?
it.
Did that feel great to see Anakin in his prime? Like we almost did not get this. I know a lot of people did not like the prequels when they came out and they shitted on him and it was so rough for him. And the fact that Clone Wars did such a great job with his character, and then we got to see him again in Obi-Wan, and then we got to see him again in this. Like he is such a fleshed out character and such an amazing character, and it's so nice to see Hayden Christensen perform him as he was in Clone Wars. So much Clone Wars like nostalgia in this. What about you guys? What are your thoughts? Adom, you want to go first?
Sure. No, I was as hype as you guys were about this, and I just love the fact that they took us through. I'm gonna jump too far ahead, but different periods of Anna and Ahsoka's relationship. I mean, I just thought that showing Anakin when he first was there, then he was Sky Guy, then he was in the armor, and then the flashes with the little bits of Vader. It was just amazing. I mean, if Filoni doesn't win like visual arts awards or whatever for some of the transitions, it's just we should all riot. That was just unbelievable. It was. I can see exactly why they put it in theaters because it was just I was blown away.
Imagine watching this in theaters. Oh my god, I would
I
freak
know.
out. That would be amazing. Rezi, what are your
I
thoughts?
kind of want to ask AMC to like just play this one episode in IMAX. Like, I would love to see that.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
That'd be incredible.
I would love to
Yeah.
rewatch it, even though I already seen it. I would love to just watch it in a theater with fans. I think that'll be so great. Oh man, I don't know. I was watching it by myself, but then I was like on Twitter, and people are posting their reactions to it. Like people just crying face, and they're not even tagging Ahsoka. It's just a crying face, and everyone's like, "We know what they just watched. We know
Yeah.
what they just watched, man." It's gonna be hard for not to get emotional in this episode because a lot of nostalgia going on here. Rosie, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I was just simply blown away. I mean, as someone who watched Clone Wars and Rebels fairly recently, like I have, the nostalgia is not too long ago, but I would say, you were talking about people ripping on the prequels. I think
Yeah,
for me, I, it was, I mean, for all of us really, Star Wars prequels were the first Star Wars movies that came out in theaters in our lifetime, right? And
Yeah.
so I think like the impact that it had at the time that it did was very different than, in retrospect, yeah, you could assess how good or bad they were, or but like I think the Phantom Menace, when that came out and you saw the Star Wars crawl and everything that followed, I mean, you couldn't help but just be completely just drawn and immersed and realize that, wow, like we're getting a fourth Star Wars, after like a 30 plus year hiatus. Like it is crazy. So it's a great time to be a Star Wars fan. And I think my Star Wars friends would say that, oh, you're a Marvel guy, hence the back. But I still have this love and appreciation. I can't wait to get into it this episode.
Me too. Me too. All right, let's get into it then, man. This episode starts off with Hera. She is surrounding the place where we last see Ahsoka and Sabine, and there is no one here. And Jason comes out and he goes, "Can I come out?" And you could almost hear lightsabers mix in with the score when he comes out, which is really, really cool. And Hera just looks great with her high-waisted pants and just looking fine and just like I was all about that. I was like, all right, let's get into it. And we see Hu Young just sitting there in the corner, and he's like, I told them to stay together. They never listen. And
Mm.
it's not clear whether he's like, talking about Sabine and Ahsoka or just Jedis in general, because apparently they never listen because he knows how they are. I don't know. What were your thoughts about how this starts off? It starts off pretty dismal, pretty sad. What were your thoughts going into this episode? Anybody? Ruzzy.
Yeah, I loved the start. It was very samurai-esque. It reminded me of Ghost of Tsushima with the red leaves. And just like she arrives to this utter, like, eerie silence, with none of her friends to be found. But like just like Hu Yang on the cliff, I mean, it was you could actually, in a weird way, like, kind of sense the sadness in him, and he's a droid. Like, that's
It's
just like
David Tennant,
crazy.
man. David Tennant
He's
can
so
like
good.
he's so good at the voice actor, man.
Such a good on range, man. I mean, yeah, he is incredible. I mean, I just it gave me such Empire vibes, right? Because it's just like you end on like you start with the loss, right? So I guess maybe not Empire, but like you get what I'm saying, right? It just kind
Yeah.
of it starts with this very like somber tone, and it starts like a movie. So I cannot even imagine folks who saw it in the theater last night.
Yeah.
I can't
So
imagine it.
lucky. I heard there was a lot of beef because AMC oversold on tickets and had to turn away people.
Wow.
People were
Sad.
really
Damn.
pissed. People were really, really pissed. So
Damn.
so people
Wow.
went there to go see it, and my boy Dimitri was there, and he did not get to see it. He got turned away, and I was like, damn, that
Aw.
sucks. So he's got beef
I'm
with
sorry about that.
AMC right now.
Yo, everybody, if you don't know, go follow Dimitri. He's amazing. Great
Yeah.
guy. Just awesome to follow. And
He,
if you
he
need a DJ for your weddings, he's your man.
he's awesome, and he also did our Black Panther episode, so definitely check out. It was cool to get Haitian representation in that episode, and that was really cool. All right, so we go back to the world between worlds, and Anakin tells Ahsoka, "You look old," and she goes, "Yeah, that happens." And at this point, I'm like, "Okay, it's good, Anakin. He's not trying to kill her." So I got a little bit happy. Um, and she asked, like, "What are you doing here?" And he goes, "I am going to finish your training." Uh, and which is really interesting because a few episodes ago, she says, "Anakin never finished my training."
Mm,
So we finally get to have that. And the interesting thing is, if you know about Jedi lore, they go through something called the trial. Obi-Wan went through it, Anakin went through it, Luke went through it with Yoda. So Ahsoka never really went through her trial, and this is what that was supposed to be. So we get to see that. Um, and he goes, "You're never too old to learn, Snips." And I was like, yes, oh, there's Snips. I was like,
Oh, dude, my heart exploded at that point. I was like, he
yeah.
did it. Yay!
Oh my god, it was really really cool. And if you don't know why he calls her Snips, is because in the first few episodes she was being very snippy with him, so she calls him Snips, or he calls her Snips, which is really really funny. So he goes, my last thing that I have to train you is to live or die. And then they go into this whole lightsaber battle, and I just love this lightsaber battle because he pulls out some very familiar moves. He pulls out the striking move that Palpatine does, which is very popular, and he also does the Obi-Wan. And if you know what the Obi-Wan is when Anakin and Obi-Wan are kind of just like fighting each other with lightsabers, and they do this like whoosh thing where they're not hitting each other; they're just showing off in between a fight, and it's labeled the Obi-Wan, I think is what it's called. Amazing. Love that he did that. I know a lot of people noticed that. What were your thoughts to the whole opening of the world between worlds, their interaction, and then the actual lightsaber fight? Adom, you want to go first this time?
Sure. So, I mean, the last episode we had a cliffhanger because Anakin was standing there and he said, didn't expect to see you so soon. And then Ahsoka and Anakin look at each other and he gives the dialogue that you just said. And then he ignites his lightsaber. And if you watch carefully, he strikes her before she even ignites her lightsabers. It's like she's not even sure, like, is this real? Like, is he actually going to attack me? And then they start fighting. And I thought the end of the fight was a little interesting because she says, I'm not going to fight you, which is what Luke told Darth Vader.
Yes, he
and
said
then
it
Anakin goes,
before.
I heard this before, and then he just totally dices the floor. And I was like, oh man, that's pretty slick right there. So
But,
It's a
but
deep
that
cut.
means but that means this Anakin not only knows everything that happened up till Ahsoka, but he's also aware of everything that happened to him at the end of his life. Because if that is a reference to what Luke said to him, then he is post Empire Strikes Back, post Revenge of the Jedi. So I think that's really really cool. It kind of just gives us a little bit of a clue into what kind of Anakin this is.
yeah, and I think this is also a big, depending on where you fall on the spectrum, there's a big internal struggle for Ahsoka because, she's fighting for her life literally. And then when, he hits the floor, you're dropped into a totally new scenario, which I was kind of expecting a little more of a lightsaber duel between the two of them.
Yeah.
But then after he does that and then they end up where they end up, I was like, oh, and I see where this is going.
Yeah.
I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I thought it was great that they didn't leave us in the Robo Team world for too long. They jumped right to the important stuff, which I thought was just amazing.
Yeah, I thought it was really, really cool. It's really interesting because what you mentioned about the fight, she does get a hit on him, which is pretty interesting. She gets a hit on him, and he kind of just smiles, but he is so aggressive in his fighting stance, and he's so intense that he's slowly pushing her back all the way until they get to this little circle. And then when she gets there, he kind of hits the floor and she falls through it, which was kind of Anakin's plan the whole time, which I think is pretty interesting. But yes, Rezi, what are your thoughts about the fight? Or Jazz, were you gonna say something?
The timeline here is getting very interesting because, as you said, this means that Anakin, knows what happened by the end of his life.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not so sure we're there
Ooh, okay.
yet. Because right now, I'm reading online, Ahsoka takes place, about a decade after A New Hope, right? And then a few years after Rebels. So it's like right at that thing. When Luke faces Vader, I believe
This is way after Return of the Jedi, though.
This after Return of the Jedi, before.
So he should be
before A
he should
Force
be dead.
Awakens.
Yeah, Vader's definitely dead when
Okay.
this occurs. Yeah,
It's the original trilogies and the new trilogies. It's that in between time,
Got
like
it.
Mandalorian.
Okay, yeah. All right, yeah. No, I'm reading it now. Yeah, okay. It happened for ABY when Luke defeats Vader, and then this is like
because remember in
9. Okay, yeah. So it's about 5 years after it happens.
I think it was in Boba Fett we see Luke with his school, and that's in this timeline. So yeah, Vader's definitely gone. Well, he's one with the Force, whatever you want to call it. He's not living.
Yeah, the internet's weird with the way they listed it because for a second it looked like it was happening like right at the time, and I was like, wait a second, what just happened? But okay, good. The timeline
Yeah.
is confirmed. This is happening after. Okay, now that's good now.
All right. Resi, what were your thoughts about the fight?
I mean, I just put epic lightsaber battle in my notes.
So epic. Look at you taking notes now, taking our podcast seriously.
I know you've gotten me into this. I'm like, I better come correct. I'm here with you three. But I think I didn't catch a Dome's comment. I mean, that is so spot on. I think one of the questions I have is this maybe where the force projections come from? I don't know. I mean, like, is there some connection between force projections, after a Jedi dies, and the world between worlds? I don't know. There's so many mysteries here. I mean, it's a stellar episode, but like more questions keep coming.
And I think this is the first time we've seen a character in the world between worlds that we know is not alive.
Yeah,
that's true.
The other times it was Ezra, it was Ahsoka, and then Palpatine was kind of in there, but we've never seen this before. So it's definitely new.
Yeah,
Very
but
true.
like in Rebels, right? Rebels, yeah,
it was Rebels.
yeah. So Ezra pulled Ahsoka in. So I mean, like, if the timeline had continued, let's say this never happened, I mean, she would have been dead, right? But I mean, does this create like a branch timeline, or was that always meant to happen, right? I think we may have talked about that in a previous episode, but
I think it was always meant to happen because when Ezra was there, he also wanted to save Kanan, and they said, well, if you save Kanan, then you might not ever become whoever you are. So you have to let things play out the way they play out. So when Ezra pulled out Ahsoka, he was always meant to pull out Ahsoka. It's kind of this stuff. So.
And going with what you're saying, Neebs, Ahsoka was the one to tell him, don't save Kanan, because you might, like, she was the one saying that, which I thought was just juicily ironic that she was the one saying that.
Yeah,
I know, right? Yeah, she's like, you saved me, but from certain death. But it does make me wonder. Just so she had said at that point where they had like split off from the world between worlds, they were escaping Palpatine. She said, I'll see you later, right? Something along those lines. But I wonder what like timeline she went to, right? Because she essentially had this whole life that happened, and then just reconnected with Sabine at the end of Rebels. So I don't know.
I believe they showed that. I think they did show that in Rebels. What happened was when she goes back in, she ends up right outside the rubble after the fight with Vader. So she ends up right outside that rubble. I remember.
And if you watch closely, I think that episode is called Twilight of the Apprentice. If you actually watch very carefully, in the original episode, you actually see her emerge from the rubble.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So she gets put right back to where she was.
Scrolling.
Yeah.
All right. I do want to get into the comments. So let's get into the comments at the moment. All right. So Brown Boy Wonders asking, did they CGI his face? Yes, they did. They de-aged his face, which is why he looked so much young and clean. And then they did it again when he gets even younger in the short hair version, which is really, really cool. Let's see what else we got comments. Besides Star Wars, I think the movie Jumper was one of his underrated movies. He was in a movie called Jumper. Oh, I don't think I've seen
it's
that.
A great movie.
Yeah, it takes place in my undergrad town, Ann Arbor, Michigan. Yeah, you should watch it. And it's funny is Samuel Jackson's in that movie, and he has the same like Mace Windu vibes. Like, you can't do this, you can't do that. It's really like, you should watch it. It's
nice. This one, he goes, the girl who played Ahsoka also played young Gamora in Avengers, and she was in the Barbie movie. So she's having a good year. Good for
Ariana Greenblatt. She's on a roll, man. Yeah.
Oh, man, that is
eye
awesome.
out for her. She's gonna be big one day.
Yeah. She's gonna blow up. Like, she's gonna be like, what's her name? The girl who plays Wednesday. She's gonna be like the new, like how big she's blown up. I feel like that could be her soon. Okay, this one says, if this is the last time we see Anakin in Star Wars Project, I'll be fine with it. I am also fine with it. I think this is a great send-off to Anakin.
I am too.
I think even Obi-Wan was a great send-off to Anakin, and then this just like is a little like sprinkle on the sundae. But like the Obi-Wan was the meat and potatoes. I really love that fight, and the fact that he goes, "You didn't kill Anakin, I killed Anakin." Like, oh. that was chills. That was
Mm.
Obi-Wan needed that. We needed that. I think that was really, really great. But I think this Anakin, it makes me feel more fulfilled for Ahsoka than it does for Anakin himself. What are your thoughts, Adam? Do you agree with that, or?
Yeah. So, you know, when Anakin hits the floor, and I'll just jump right there since we're already talking about this.
Yeah.
They land, and they're in the middle of the Clone Wars, and you realize that Ahsoka is the younger version of herself, and it's Ariana Greenblatt. I thought that it was amazing because I actually disagree, Jazz and Neebs. I actually want a full live action Clone Wars show, given
Dude,
the action that we had.
I never said.
Yeah, no, I want all just get Hayden Christensen back because the way they had him in the armor and the hair and like the lessons, the way they were talking, the arm folds, it was
So
just
great.
everything.
So
Everything
good.
was there,
Yeah,
and
it was.
a little bit of Rex mixed in, and then also just like the lessons and like the chemistry between Ariana and Hayden. It was a little
Yeah.
better than Rosaria and him. I was like, damn, you really got a stranglehold on this. Like that was I was blown away by that. That was amazing.
They had me believing she was Snips. Like it was really that good.
Yeah, and one more thing I'll add is they really hammered home the fact that like in the animation you don't really get the feeling that like the Jedi just sent in like kids to be child soldiers. In the live action, that was really hammered home for me. Like she was literally
Yeah.
just like a kid running around as a soldier. That was really hammered home for me.
And they talked a little bit about how they were always meant to be peacekeepers, and now they're just automatically thrown into being generals in wars and stuff like that, which is really telling. And I really, really love that. I do want to go back to where we go and we see them mention Senator Organa. I thought that was a cool little tidbit. And it's fun to see that Princess Leia is still doing things in the Senate, and she's still a senator, and she knows of Hera, and she's helping them out. But I do believe she doesn't end up being senator for long. According to the Bloodline novel, she gets outed by her rivals, and they out her for being the daughter of Darth Vader. So not everyone knows that she is the daughter of Darth Vader until she is a little bit more senior in her like senatorship or whatever, and they out her, and then she leaves and then becomes General Leia, which is really, really cool. But it's cool to see her that she's still Senator Leia in this, and she knows about the rebels. I think that's really cool. And then we also see Jason just looking at the waters. Now he can hear the lightsaber battles, which is really cool. And I love the way that the lightsaber battles also sound like waves. Like there's something about like waves smashing against water and rock and lightsabers, the way they just mesh together, it's so beautiful. And I don't know how the sound effects people did it, but it really sounded like, whoa, they're happening at the same time. And it was really, really cool to see. And I love the fact that Hera decided to believe him instead of most moms are kind of like, whatever, and they ignore their kid. And then you're like, you should have listened to him. They didn't go that trope. And I really liked it. And they listened to him. And yeah. And, they're like, oh, shit. Maybe something's happening. Let's go back out there and look for them a little bit longer. What were your thoughts about that, Jazz?
Specifically, when Carson Teva was like, "Why should we listen to the kid?" And then Hu Yang was like, "Well, his dad was a Jedi," and he's just like, "All right, makes sense to me. Let's go." And he just like gets in his jet and starts patrolling. I'm like, "Yes, this is what I'm here for."
Well,
I love that part.
He specifically said Jason has abilities like his father, Kanan Jarrus. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, we got the name drop. So anyway, sorry, I had to.
Jazz, there's
That was
there's a meme I saw where it's Carson and Hu Yang, and Teva says, what's going on here? And then it's Hu Yang handing him like all the versions of Rebels, like this is what is happening. Go watch this, and you have no more questions. I was dying when I saw that.
Accurate.
So Ruzzy mentioned that there is a Kanan Jarrus reference, but did you know there is also a Kanan Jarrus picture right in front of the cockpit? There is a picture of Kanan, and some suspect that it may actually be a picture of Freddie Prinze Jr., who voiced the actor. Who was the voice actor. That's really, really cool. I love that little Easter egg. That's so cool. I love that they did that. All right. Let's go back to what Adom was talking about. So they're in the Clone Wars, and she is young, and you know she's young because she has the green lightsaber. Now she has a green lightsaber and then a yellow lightsaber, and those were the two lightsabers she ends up using. She doesn't get the two white lightsabers until the seventh season of Clone Wars, where Anakin gives her those two lightsabers. So you know she's like really young in this one. And she talks a little bit about like the war. Like she's a general and she's making decisions, and these decisions are causing people to die. And I believe the battle that they're on right now is the Battle of Ryloth, which her dad was a general at. Uh, and he was one of the main people on there. So it kind of goes back to uh, Jason's ancestry also, because Jason, his grandfather was there. So I think it's very, very cool to have that reference. But there is this one scene at the end, and I know everyone is going crazy over it, but as Ahsoka sees Anakin walk away, you see a glimpse of Vader, and it's just the most badass transition until the next transition that we see a little bit later on. But oh my god, I was going crazy over it. I was watching this and I'm just like, I can't believe I just saw that. So good. Dome, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, this is what I was talking about earlier with the transitions. That was probably, I mean, I know last week when we got the waves to Ahsoka waking up was the most beautiful transition. Well, that's gone. We have now a better one that's even more amazing. Just the smoke in the clouds and the fact that the 501st and Rex were there with him, like he was
Yes.
storming the Jedi Temple. That was just amazing. But I really love the conversations between young Ahsoka and Anakin, because it really showed how, like, the stuff that we didn't get in the films between 2 and 3. Because, you know, in the Clone War, Attack of the Clones, he'd just become a Jedi at the end, had his arm chopped off and got married. And then in Revenge of the Sith, he was going to rescue Palpatine, and Padme was basically already pregnant. We didn't get any of that in live action until now, and I thought it was great the way they had the banter going back and forth, and her really just questioning everything, and him kind of going back and forth and just being like, "What do you want, Ahsoka? What do you want me to teach you?" And I thought that was just great the way they go back and forth, because in the line that they're in, where you have, you know, Ahsoka, Anakin, Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, and Dooku, there's always the tension between master and apprentice. I thought they did a great job of kind of just showing that in the middle of the battle.
No, that's great, man. I totally agree with you. I think that was really good. And you mentioned Rex. They actually had the actor come back and
Mhm.
voice the role and stuff like that, which is really, really cool. They did bandage his face up and stuff, so you don't see it. It was kind of like, let's not worry about the makeup and prosthetics and all that stuff. Let's just do this. So I thought that was really cool. But the next war they go to is the Siege of Mandalore. And Anakin was like, I don't recognize this. And she goes, yeah, we had already parted ways. And the actress, Ariana, does such a great job, because from the fight we did before and the fight we're doing now, she just looks more grown up. She looks older. She's just acting like she's standing up with more confidence. She's fighting with more confidence. She's looking with more confidence. She's like crossing her arms just the way Anakin does. Like she is taking all this in. And I'm just like, this is such a perfect job. She's doing such an excellent job. I loved it. Even the headgear that she wears is adapted for like what age she is. She even looks taller, to be honest. I thought it was like, oh man, that's interesting what they did. I really, really like that. And the Siege of Mandalore is in the last season of Clone Wars, where basically Darth Maul fights somebody for the dark saber, and then he becomes the leader of the Mandalorians, and he becomes the leader of specifically the Death Watch Mandalorians, and they take on his horns in their armor, which you see one of the Death Watch, people that Ahsoka killed. And this is one of the reasons that a lot of people believe that the armor from the Mandalorian is part of Maul's Death Watch, because she has horns on her helmet. So I thought that was really, really cool that they kind of went back and they showed this. Really, really like this callback. And you see that Anakin's scar comes back too in this scene, because he's getting a bit older. I just love this. And they start talking about legacy. And she goes, my legacy will be of destruction and death. Kind of reference to, hey, Anakin, your legacy is kind of a destruction or death. And then he goes, you're more than that. And in a way, he's kind of saying that he was more than that too, right? So I really, really love this dialogue between them. And I love the way the dialogue slowly evolves as she's at a different age in her life. I would love to go around the room and get your opinions on this one. Jazz, you want to go first?
Sure. So the siege of Mandalore happened 19 years before, the timeline thing happened. And so this specific year is also the year Ahsoka leaves the Jedi Order.
Right.
This is the year that Anakin kills Count Dooku
Yes.
and becomes Darth Sidious' apprentice. So
And Order
having
66 happens.
Order 66 does happen. In fact, Ahsoka was on Mandalore when Order 66 happened, and she escaped because of Captain Rex. So
Exactly.
having all of these stories just culminate in this moment where you see Anakin and Ahsoka there, like, oh yeah, this is what happened. This is what happened, after we split ways. Like, Anakin's also learning a few other things here. And then having it all tie together with him teaching her in this moment just reinforces what an amazing relationship that a master and a Padawan have. That even in death, you can revisit things and learn, but more importantly, you can even fix mistakes in that exact moment and learn from them. So I thought that was just
Mm,
phenomenal how the way they executed that.
very cool. Very cool. Adome, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, this was pretty awesome. I mean, I was freaking out a little bit when the transition happened and you realize that they're on Mandalore when you saw the Death Watch. And
Yeah.
my wife was like, "Why are you freaking out?" I was like, "They're showing Mandalore live action. This is like groundbreaking." She totally didn't get it because she hadn't seen all of Clone Wars. And I was like, "This is amazing." And I thought it was awesome how, again, Anakin and Ahsoka were talking. And he's kind of alluding to the fact that, like, as you mentioned, you're more than just this legacy of destruction and death. But he's really saying, I'm more than that. And it's okay to acknowledge my darkness because now I've made peace with it and I can move on from it. She's definitely not in that space. I think that's also why, she's in the world between worlds because she's been struggling with this. And we see later in the episode how she totally emerges from it. But it was awesome to go back to Mandalore because I think, Jazz, you said that, Anakin, he had no idea what was happening on Mandalore. He was saving city. I mean, he was saving Palpatine. He was killing Dooku. He was becoming Darth Vader. He had no idea what was happening in Ahsoka's life at this point. So the fact that we got to see both of them revisit this was just awesome. I do have one little gripe. I would have loved to have seen the live action fight between Maul and Ahsoka take place and have Anakin watch it because of that one line where Ahsoka says, like, you're lucky Anakin didn't show up because you can't really fight very well. I would have loved for him to have seen that. But
That would
otherwise,
be
I thought it was awesome.
so what happens now is Anakin and Ahsoka kind of go into this little pitter patter, right? And he gets a little annoyed. He's like, she still hasn't learned anything. So what he does is he goes, all right, we got to go back to the beginning. And then he has the same exact stance that he has on Mustafar when he fights Obi-Wan. And they even have a little bit of like the music. And then they start fighting and they start going at it. And then he kicks her back into the world between worlds. And as he's walking through the portal, you see a glimpse of Vader again. And that transition, I was like, oh my God, two of these transition in one show was just amazing. I love that scene. What are your thoughts about their second fight as they go into the world between worlds?
Rosie, why don't you take this one?
Let Rozzy go first. Yeah.
So I just want to go back to the transition. So when I was taking notes, I I put colors because I think that was the first thing that popped when you first see the when you go from the world between worlds to the Clone Wars, it's pink. Then you go to Mandalore, it's yellow, and then or sorry, there's another in between scene. It's yellow and then orange and then blue when we get back in this fight. And she said, or he said to her, "You lack conviction,"
Oh, I love that
and
line.
that was just chilling. And I mean, the fight was again very epic, and I think the stakes were higher. And as most Jedi fights, and just in general, like how the training goes, the training is not so much the teaching, it's the doing, right? And so I think the doing, the conversations that you have with your master, that's how the Padawan learns. This trial, really, what you said earlier. And I think when she finally like just kind of wrestled with all the emotions, the guilt, probably the trauma that she had faced. She was like, I choose to live. Right. I think she
Mhm.
realized that, that everything that she's gone through, is all for not, is certainly for something greater. And she doesn't realize it yet, but maybe she's starting to a little bit. And when she says, I choose to live, there's hope for you yet. Right. And so I think that was pretty incredible.
Yeah, that's a good point. I also noticed that she does this when she loses her lightsabers, she does the same exact move that Anakin does on Dooku when he gets Dooku to he defeats Count Dooku, and where Anakin kills Dooku, Ahsoka just holds her lightsaber up to him and goes, "I choose to live," and throws it away. And I thought that was just really, really cool. I really, really enjoyed that. And then he goes, "Hope for you yet." And then the best part is he's evil Anakin with his eyes and everything. He looks down, he looks back up, and there's our sky guy, right? There's Annie, and he goes like from this mean Darth Vader broken guy back to the lovable guy that we know. Um, it was a sweet, sweet scene, and then it gave her closure, I believe, and it gave us closure. I thought it was really, really good. Adone, what are your thoughts?
So I don't think nobody mentioned this yet, but I love the fact that we got Hayden Christensen with the red lightsaber
Yeah.
walking. I mean, that was just amazing to me because we had not seen that before. And as he's walking, the transition happened. I thought to myself, like, this is the version of Darth Vader that like Obi-Wan denied Palpatine on Mustafar.
Yes.
Where it was like, before he was in the suit, like, oh, go to the Jedi Temple, kill the, like, all that stuff. Palpatine really didn't have the full-blown apprentice for that long, and I thought it was awesome that Ahsoka was fighting him. And the whole, like, I choose to live thing, Ahsoka's eyes definitely changed when she was holding the lightsaber, and I was
Yeah.
kind of like, are you going to strike him down? But she really just had her, like, I don't know. I've talked before with some people about how this is like Ahsoka's transition from like Gandalf the Grey to Gandalf the White.
A lot of
It
people
was
have
it
said
was
that.
like
Yeah.
this is literally the active transition where she was like, no, I choose, like, I'm gonna forgive myself for my sins. I'm gonna rise and be baptized from it. And she literally rose above everything. And I thought it was amazing that when she held the lightsaber to his face, they didn't say a word to each other. She just
Yep.
gave him an intense look, and then she just turned over. All right, I'm this new person now. That was just her training is complete, like literally.
Yeah, I love that you brought up the Gandalf, the gray turning into Gandalf the white, because there is a lot of similarities between that. Like even when Anakin breaks the floor down and they fall through, that what happened with Gandalf and the Balrog. Uh, so I thought that was really, really cool. And then she just comes back with this like white poncho, and it's like she is Gandalf the gray, and she turns into Gandalf the white. It's really, really cool. I definitely enjoyed that.
One thing
Jazz, what?
I
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, one thing I want to mention here is that, you know, what's so powerful about this moment was that this is a mistake Anakin made, and Ahsoka in this moment learned not to make the exact same mistake. So it's also somewhat of a redemption for Anakin saying, hey, I've made mistakes in the past. At least now, as a master for my Padawan, I can make sure she doesn't make the same mistakes. And she didn't make the same mistake. And he was like, you know what? This is great. Your training's complete now.
Yeah. I love that. It's so good that we get to see her training complete. And then Ahsoka, there's this transition again where it starts going into the world between worlds and starts turning into water again. And it's really, really cool. And then we see her kind of just like in a Christ pose, and she's kind of like Adom said,
The
baptized.
baptism. Yeah.
Yeah, really, really cool imagery. And then we see that somebody dives in to save her, and it's all because of Jason. Jason did it, and which was really, really cool. Jason knew the whole time. Um, and then we see Ahsoka wake up, and she doesn't have her headband on. So you see like where the makeup starts and like the headgear starts. I thought that was really cool. It's the first time we've ever seen that. And then she comes out and she thanks Jason. Jason goes to Hu Young and is like, hey, have you ever made a lightsaber before? Which is like, yeah, bro, that's all he does. I thought that was really, really cool. And he goes, I'll show you the training room. I thought that was really, really cool. And that's where we see Ahsoka used this whatchamacallit, force memory thing where she can find out where something is. Now, there's a comment in here, a little bit of hate in here by Zane. He says, "Since when does Ahsoka have all these powers? She can talk to animals like Ezra, has the memory stuff like Fallen Order Jedi Cal Kestis." So that Cal Kestis was not the first time we've seen that. We've actually seen that in Clone Wars too. We definitely seen other people use the memory echo, Force Echo, I think it's called.
Force Arco. It's called Force
Yeah.
Arco.
We've seen other people use that too. And if you watch Tales of the Jedi, Ahsoka does have a connection with animals. She when she was a baby, she had whatchamacallit, connection with animals. She gets kidnapped by an animal and then comes back. So if you watch Tales of the Jedi, that actually does go into that. So yeah, I love that she has all these powers. I think she's becoming a really, really great Jedi. But at this point, the fleet is coming. And they're like, well, they're coming. And then Hera's like, great, they're just a little late. Like, yeah, they're not coming to help us. they're coming to take us in. They're mad. Which just goes to show you how backwards and bureaucratic the New Republic is, which is like, all right, no wonder people went back to the Empire or the First Order. Look how horrible you guys are running things. I thought that was really, really cool. And then Ahsoka has an idea on how to get to where Sabine is. And the idea she has is to go to the Purgles and use them for transportation. Now, we've seen Ezra do this in the last episode of Rebels. And the other thing is, we've seen Ahsoka in the beginning. This whole time, she has to have control. She needs control. She has to tell Sabine what to do. She needs to have like all the control. But when she goes inside the whale, and they say, "Do you think we'll get there?" She goes, "We'll get somewhere." like she gave up that control, which is her lesson. She's given into the Force, right, and letting it guide her, which I thought was really, really cool. You guys, what are your thoughts on that? I don't know what order. I forgot which order I had, but
Jazz, you go first. Go ahead.
yeah, you can go first.
Okay, so first of all, can we talk about how beautiful the Purgle were in live action?
Yeah, they're cool.
Oh my god, seeing all of them like that, so majestic, just floating through the air. And then the big boy shows up and she's like, let me connect with you. And then the Purgle, like, they're so majestic and mystical. And they understand. They're like, you know what? Yes, I can take you there. And at this time, I was thinking, maybe this is one of the Purgles that helped Ezra back in the day. Now he's all grown up because there was a baby Purgle way back when. So I think this might be the grown-up version of it. And so they know exactly where he is, and that's why he knows where to go, or she knows where to go, wherever. And then, God, like, when Ahsoka is just sitting back, relaxed, like, she's just different. And I'm so glad to see her smile. I'm so happy to see that she's let all the anger and resentment that she's been holding in with her failures to, like, just let it all go. And now it's like, hey, here's to the future. It's a better future. I'm going to be part of it. I'm going to do my best. And that's all I can do.
Love that. Adom, what about you?
So going back a little bit to the stuff about the fleet coming, I was I was a little bit triggered because when I think it was Mon Mothma in the hologram, she said the two dangerous words. She said oversight committee. And I was like, oh god, what is this about? Bureaucratic nightmare. But no, the Purgle were awesome in live action, and going along with what Jazz was saying, this is probably the most at peace and powerful we've probably ever seen a Jedi. If we're calling, I mean, I think Ahsoka's kind of transcended the meaning of what it means to be a Jedi, but I think as a Force user who's been trained, it's probably the most at peace and powerful at the same time we've ever seen somebody before. I mean, she was just totally in control and also okay with going with the flow. I mean, donning all the white poncho was on. She didn't really care about where the destination was. She was sure that she was going to find Ezra. I mean, no matter how it works out. And I love the fact that, when she did the Force Echo with the map, she ran through the whole scenario and she knew, like, okay, I have to go find them. And she had to find a way to do it. And she just kind of let the Force bring the answer to her. And then she went along with it. And I thought it was the conversation with Carson Teva, and I can't remember the general's name on board the ship, but Carson was just like, okay, fine, I'll tell you, but you're not going to believe me for what's happening here.
It's such an insane plan.
Yeah,
I wouldn't believe you if you said that to me.
Yeah, I was like, okay, all right, whatever. But the Purgle, man, I mean, in the little den I have in our house with our TV, I left my e-bike battery on top of the subwoofer, and when the Purgles went to light speed, the battery got pushed off the subwoofer, and it's like a heavy battery, and I was like, oh wow, this is like, it's a huge scene. Like, I understand why they did it in theaters now. And the last thing I'll say is, I think Jazz, you had said this on an earlier podcast about this. We're definitely going to see Thrawn at the end of the episodes now. I think.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's going to happen. I think it happened before that. I was totally wrong about that. You were right, because I think you called that.
Damn. I don't want you to be right, but damn it, Jazz, you're right.
I'm right every now and then, and when I'm right, it's worth it.
Also, a lot of biblical references in this episode, right? Like with the whale, like you got like, you know, Jonah and the whale, and Noah and the whale. Why did I say Jonah? I don't know. What's it called? Yeah, Noah and the whale. No, wait, Noah's Ark. It is Jonah and the whale.
Eunice. Right?
Jonah.
Okay, I know the Arabic names. That's what it is.
Noah and the Ark and Jonah and the whale.
Yeah, Noah's the Ark, Jonah's the whales. Yeah, I was right. All right. So, you got that. Then you got the baptism. Then you got the whole Christ. Like, there's a lot of imagery here, which I thought was really, really cool. So I really did like that. And then I love the fact that as soon as the last Purgles leave, they say the same thing Ezra said when the last Purgle left in that episode, and that was, "May the Force be with you." And that was really cool.
I started crying at this moment. I was like, oh my God, they did it.
Such a great way to end this, man. Fantastic. Rezi, what are your thoughts?
Well, when she said, "Let's go find them," I was like, oh, okay, here we go. I mean, she's, you know, before it was like, all right, well, if we find Ezra, that means we're going to find Thrawn, and that's just going to bring about war. But I think she just came to this piece in which we just need to find our friends, right? And I think it's just such a beautiful episode. I mean, I don't like, it was cinema, but in like episode form, like it's just really stunning. I mean, a lot of the scenes would be something like pulled from a like Villanueva like film, right? I mean, just like, you know, just kind of this beauty and like majesty, right? Like it's just really stunning. But I'm so excited, and definitely got the feels, Jazz, at the end. So I'm so excited to see where this goes. I think we're going to see Thrawn towards the end. So I think here we go. Let's do this.
Yeah. That's really cool. Also, Zane brings up a good point. He says that I hope that Ahsoka made another Jedi Order and Jason is alive and Ezra is his master. That's a good point, because if Jason's alive and he is, if Jason is a Jedi and all the Jedis were killed by Ben Solo, does that mean Jason was killed by Ben Solo?
Don't send him to Luke's Academy.
Keep him as a rebel. Don't send him to the Academy. We want to make sure that he's alive, man. Freaking Ben Solo. Man.
One thing I want to go back to real quick. You know how we're talking about how insane the idea of traveling with a Purgle is, but in their mouth?
Yeah.
It was so funny. Like, the moment the Purgle got into space and you see them, the general's like, okay, everybody out of the way. This plan actually is happening. Like, no question at that point. Like, yep, it's happening. Just let it happen.
I think it was a classic line, take evasive action or something like that.
Yeah, right.
Oh my God.
Oh, good old Admiral Akbar and callbacks to everything. It's such a good episode.
Oh man, this is such a good episode. I can't believe people were writing it off when it first started the show. So you gotta trust in Dave Filoni, man. You gotta trust in Dave Filoni. Holy crap. Man. Anything else you guys want to go over before we go into Easter eggs?
No, I just like so we didn't really talk too much about kind of what was happening outside the Master Padawan sequence. So I don't know if you want to dive into that, but just really, really quick on that. I remember when they were searching for Ahsoka, Hu Yang was like, Lady Tano is tenacious like her master.
Yeah.
And then I think the response was, what was he like? Intense. Like, that was just so on brand.
I love the fact that a few episodes ago they say she does come from a long line of unorthodox Padawans and stuff. So it goes from Sabine to Ahsoka to Anakin to Obi-Wan to Qui-Gon to Dooku to Yoda. That's their lineage.
Wow.
Which I think
It's
is
pretty
really,
dope.
really funny. That's a pretty dope lineage to have.
That's really
Yeah.
cool. That's really,
Uh,
really cool. I'm digging
uh,
that.
all right. All right. So I'm gonna go into Easter eggs. Anything else you guys want to talk about before I go into Easter eggs?
Nah, man, let's do it.
All right, some of these are funny. There's one point where Hera goes, "People don't just appear out of thin air," right? And Hu Yang goes, "Normally they don't." And then like we actually have Obi-Wan, Yoda, and also Morak, who all disappeared in thin air. Morak was just last episode. He just turned into mist. So yeah, people do actually disappear in thin air in Star Wars, actually, which I thought was pretty funny. Um, let's see. We talked about how the second fight with Ahsoka is very similar to their fight on Mustafar, which was really, really cool. They did a lot of the same fight choreography, and also you can hear a little bit of the music too. I thought that was really cool. And let's see what else he says. Oh, one funny thing, that little bit of an Easter egg. Jason goes, he does say far, far away, which is something that we see in every single Star Wars show, in a galaxy far, far away. Someone actually said it, which I thought was really, really cool. All right. And then we already talked about Ariana Greenblatt, who was Gamora. She was in the Barbie movie, and she was also in Ahsoka. We talked about how we saw Rex, which was really cool. Man, seeing Rex in live action was really, really cool. I really liked that. One thing that people notice is the fighting style between the young Ahsoka and Ahsoka afterwards. The older Ahsoka fights with patience, where the other Ahsoka fights impatiently, which I thought was really, really interesting. A lot of people pointed that out.
Child soldier, man. That's
Right? Exactly.
But like the one in the show is like a samurai, and then Baylor was kind of like a knight, right? He was like this big regal knight. Anyway.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, some of these we already talked about. We're just so good at it. We just talked about it in our national conversations. The antenna that Hera was using to find the location is the same antenna that Han Solo uses to find Luke on Hoth, which I thought was really, really cool. Let's see. We talked about the Gandalf stuff. Also, another thing is you see the scene where Anakin is joking, and she goes, "Why are you joking at a time like this?" And you see, as the episodes go on in Clone Wars, like Ahsoka and Anakin joke around all the time while they're fighting, which is kind of like how they're coping with all the death and destruction that's going on. Very similar to how doctors in hospitals joke around when there's death everywhere. Something that like I learned when I started watching Scrubs, and people told me, "Yo, look, it's just like Scrubs because there's so much death everywhere. You have to like desensitize yourself to it and joke around and stuff like that." And it was really interesting to see that in a war perspective, and how Ahsoka was so disgusted at him making a joke while people were dying. And then at the very end of it, she is so desensitized that she would also do that with Anakin. I thought that was pretty interesting too. So that was a cool little depiction. Those are all my Easter eggs, man. So anything else that you guys noticed that you thought were cool that you guys want to talk about? Any of the Easter eggs you want to dive into a little bit more?
So one thing I noticed. Oh, sorry, Jazz. Go ahead.
No, you can go, man. I'm gonna go to the comments right after because Zane has some really cool points.
Okay, so one thing I did notice is the line. I think Razi mentioned this. That you lack conviction. They overlaid that with like the Vader mechanical voice. I thought that was awesome when he was walking towards her, kind of out of the shadows. It was very ominous, just like when he was walking towards the temple, like that. So I thought that was awesome. They chose to redo that, which is essentially what they did at the. I think that was the finale in Obi-Wan, right, where they mixed his voice when his helmet had come off. Yeah, I thought that was just a very nice touch.
So Disney has actually bought the rights to James Earl Jones' voice, so they can always do that, which is really interesting. So they could always like mix in James Earl Jones' voice with AI to add it in any other Darth Vader scenes, which is pretty interesting. So they always have access to that, and they just bought it from him, I guess.
So is that how we got the strike?
I guess I don't know.
Is that
It's
the
part of
beginning
it.
of the
Good
strike?
question. Good
They
question.
said they paid for it, so I don't know
Okay.
what kind of deal they ran. It
They
was
pay
probably
enough. You can't pay him enough.
yeah. You can't pay him enough. He's so old that he's like, what the hell's AI? I don't know.
King.
Yeah. All right. Jazz, you want to go into the comments?
Yeah, real quick, because Zane was like, right before the end, there was some U.S. military propaganda where they're showing civilian government to be incompetent and these military people choosing war. That's a very good point. But that's what empires and republics do. Like, that's just the natural course of history.
Mm-hmm.
He also said that all the Jedi's that Ruzzy mentioned, all the way back up, and they all cause problems in their own way. But this is the beauty of the world between worlds, right? You can learn from your masters afterwards and correct the mistakes they've made, which I think is a really powerful tool that the Jedi can use forever. I'm really curious to see the implications of this long term. It's just very exciting to think about. And lastly, he said the Yuuzhan Vong can be set up, and I'm like, okay, this is a very good point. None of us talked about it, so if anyone wants to dive into this real quick, I'm all ears because this is gonna be fun.
Yeah, you want to explain to people what that is?
The race or like the history of it?
The history of it.
I personally haven't read that. What is it? Comic, book, whichever. So if anybody else has something on here, please dive in. I know there's just like some general, things about it. Like, they're humanoid. They did work against the Republic. They were working with the Sith. I know they can't be sensed by the Force, which is very interesting because all
Wow.
the Jedi have problems with that. So, but beyond that, I really have no knowledge about that.
Mm. I don't really have
Yeah,
any knowledge on
I
that
have
either.
I have not read that either. Yeah, but I guess I'll have to add that to my list.
All right, we all have to learn something today.
All
Guy,
right, cool.
So there's one thing that I think this episode kind of brings like some, I don't know, not close. It does bring some closure to Anakin's story, but at the same time, I think it gives Hayden Christensen the like admiration that he had so long deserved. At the 2023 Star Wars Celebration,
Yes, I was
when he
there.
came out,
I was
stop.
there. I was physically there.
wow, that's
Damn,
crazy.
that's
Yeah, yeah.
incredible. I mean, he got emotional. So maybe you could talk about. I mean, that like he's so deserving of the
Dude, the
praise and
crowd went insane. Like people were crying. People were like, "Yo, he deserves it." He was literally on there, and like it was like his first time out there
yeah,
for a while, and people were like, "Yo, he didn't deserve all the hate that he got." He's got a standing ovation. He got a standing ovation. It was for minutes. It was so great. It was amazing. It was one of my favorite things, and they even gave us like a free poster
that's so cool.
afterwards too. It was so cool, and it was one of the best moments. It was a Star Wars Celebration. I believe it's the one in Orlando, or it was the one in Chicago. I don't know which one. I went to both. But yes, it was really, really cool moment, and he was definitely so grateful that the audience was finally like accepting him. And then these two moments came with Obi-Wan and Ahsoka. Like, he deserves this so much. And there was a similar moment with Ahmed Best, and Filoni gave him a great moment just in the last show that we watched too, in the last Mandalorian episode. So I thought that was really cool. I love that these people are getting their flowers. Hopefully some of the people who got screwed in the sequels will also get their flowers. I hope so. Did Dave Filoni fix it?
I think that's the other thing about fandom is like, look, a lot of these actors try to put their best into their work.
Yeah.
Writers, I mean, it's a big thing, right? These movies, these shows, there's a lot that goes into it. And if something doesn't go according to maybe your plan, doesn't mean it's bad, right? I mean, I think it may not be your favorite thing, but just try to respect the people and not give them hell, especially, those that come from historically marginalized communities. I mean, I feel like that is just absolutely appalling. And, there,
Yeah.
fandom can have no part of that, which is why I appreciate Slum Nerds. Thanks for creating this space.
Yes, exactly. That's what we're all about, man. We want to have space for people who are underrepresented to have a voice and talk about these kind of things. And I think Star Wars should be the best place for that because it's it's all alien species. It's nothing but diverse, right? So it's supposed to be uh it's supposed to be exactly what we want the world to be. Like so many different people, so many different races, whether you're an alien or whether you're just, a human. We want to make sure these people are represented. Also, a lot of times these characters are coded by other communities, and people should be able to talk about that. Like you can't have a Mandalorian who's not allowed to take off his helmet and not talk about how it's similar to a hijab that women wear, right? Like these things are very similar. So I think that's really, really cool. And there's also similarities between the Viet Cong and all of this stuff that happens. And it shouldn't just be, you know, white people talking about it. It should be everybody talking about it. It should be all the communities that are represented in these portrayals that should be talking about it. So yeah, totally agree with you guys, man. That's why I love doing this. All right. So what do we got? Anything else?
Yeah, Zane in the comments like John Boyega deserves his flowers. Oops.
Yeah.
I just like the wrong comment.
Absolutely.
Absolutely agree with that.
There
Absolutely
we go.
agree with
Yeah,
that.
he's gonna have a redemption arc too one day, and I can't wait to see that.
Yep. We're definitely gonna see that. All right. Well, that's all I got for today's episode, guys. Thank you guys for joining on. Do you guys want to share anything, promote anything, or talk about anything before we leave? Feel free. The time is yours. Adom?
Nothing here. I just want to add one thing about the episode. So, I think this is the first Disney Plus show where they've not aired it like, it comes online for everybody at like, 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever. If you're on the East Coast, it's like 9 p.m. And when I started it, my Disney Plus was spinning. And I was like, oh God, not now. I have to be able to watch this. And so I just want to shout out the fact that like, there's something to be said about the fact that like, there's a collective audience made to watch this at the same time every week. It's
Yeah.
With streaming, we're used to like when House of Cards started, all 10 episodes or whatever up at once. But this is like, okay, Tuesdays at 9 Eastern, I have to be in front of my TV to watch this, or else something could be spoiled or I might miss it. So I think that is powerful, and the fact that it's a Star Wars show. I think with the character development, Ahsoka is the best Star Wars character that's ever been created, given the development that she's had. So it's just amazing. It's a great time to be a fan.
Rosie, what about you? Anything else?
Indeed, it's a great time to be a fan. So, and just grateful that you're having us back to talk about this incredible, incredible show.
Awesome. All right, Jazz.
I love you guys.
Last thoughts. I love you guys too.
I love that we're on this journey together. This is so fun.
We're a little family. Love it. Love it. All right. Well, next episode is going to be a little rough because I will be in Arizona. So hopefully I will have decent Wi-Fi. If not, I will call through my phone. But we'll try to get that one done too. And then I think after that is the finale, I believe. Correct?
Is it 7 episodes or 8?
I think there's 8. I think.
Okay, so there's
Is it
one
8 or
more.
9?
Okay. Fair. All right, so we have one more. Good. All right, so the next one is the only one that's going to be a little rough. So we'll see how that goes. That's all I have. Thank you everybody for joining us, and until next time, guys. Salaam nerds.
Peace.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.